What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Grid Encore. I'm your host, Ben Schneider, joined as always by Brenden Crossman. Brenden, how's it going tonight?
All right, Ben. Good to see everyone here on Grid Encore. Glad you can make it with us. And it is, well, maybe not a Motor Monday because I don't know where that thing is, but it's a fancy Monday. We'll
there
keep
you go.
It there. Yeah.
It's a Monday nonetheless. You're here, I'm here. We're going to make the show work like we always do.
It was a Motor Monday near the Motor City in the Irish Hills of Michigan.
There you go.
Which we'll get to. And something about a Ram.
Yeah, a big announcement that I think you can file it under the worst kept secrets folder. I think we all knew it was coming at this point, but that's just the age that we live in, this social media time that we're going through. Everything gets leaked somehow, and I think we all had a pretty good idea of what it was going to be, and that's what we're going to start with here tonight. But before we do that, as always, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Thank you so much for continuing to invest in us here at the Grid Network. And if you like what you see tonight, you want to consider joining these 6 individuals in helping not just keep us on the air, but continue to expand our coverage and expand what we do here at the Grid Network. You can visit the link in the description box below. You can also hit the YouTube membership button, or if you're watching us live and you'd rather just make a one-time tip to us instead, you can tip us through Super Chat or the Buy Me a Coffee link, also in the description box below as well. Any amount helps us continue to grow our motorsports media outlet, but the best thing that you all can do is hit the subscribe button if you aren't already, and make sure you also visit our still recently relaunched website over at gridnetworktv.com. Now, Brenden, like I said, I think we have to start with the big announcement about Ram returning to the NASCAR Truck Series and hinting potentially at bringing the Dodge brand back to the Cup Series at a later date. But they're going to do, I guess, what Toyota did in 2004, at least test the waters with a Truck Series program and then see where it goes from there. This is something that we've been getting hints of for a long time, and also getting hints that maybe NASCAR might not be done. It took so long to finally have those 4th manufacturer rumors come to fruition. They're already talking about maybe these Honda rumors heating up again, a couple irons in the fire maybe over there. But first and foremost, what was your reaction to the news that for the first time, I believe since 2018, we were trying to figure that out before we came on the show, the last zombie Dodge to run, that this company is going to be back in NASCAR and providing full factory support at that?
Yeah, that's true. And I think I saw in a press release this morning, it's like a 13-year hiatus for Ram or Dodge Ram to be in the Craftsman Truck Series. So a return to that as well. But I think we're going to be seeing if they want to progress any further in this road back to Cup, which it seems like they're open to doing that. But there's no timetable really set in place. Oh, look at that beauty. Look at that. Yeah, there's that Dodge Ram. Well, it's a Ram 1500, but excuse Ben and I, we probably can't help but saying Dodge in front of it. But owned by Stellantis, but it's nice to see that Mopar there on the rear quarter panel. My reaction to it overall, Ben, was just the fact that we basically knew everything there was to know about it before it was released at Michigan, which is a proper place to do it. Near Motor City, but it was funny because someone had a video leak of some warehouse where they had the car ready to go, and someone paused the video, AI enhanced it so they could get like a clear HD shot of the truck, which turned out pretty good. Looking back, pretty accurate. But yeah, this is a good first step to get another OEM in the series once again, at least in the Craftsman Truck Series, starting at Daytona next year. And it's something that's just kind of been floating around the rumor mill ever since they left. Really, it was that failed launch of the Dodge Challenger Dodge Charger rather in 2013. They had the test car ready to go and everything. Revealed it at Charlotte. It was a reveal much similar to what we saw there yesterday, but it just wasn't meant to be. But they've said, like in their press release, like always kind of in the back of their mind, how are we going to get? We would like to get back to it, but what's a way we can build our way back to it? It's good to see that they're finally back, and I'm curious to see that they're going to be on a big media blitz here between now and February. It seems like they have a lot planned in the pipeline as far as commercials through NASCAR races and in other areas as well. It's a Ram. oh man, I forgot what it's called. I just saw it today. Ram, something about a rebuilding. Ram. So they do some play on words with Ram. You're following me? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this whole marketing campaign, and of course they're trying to sell Ram trucks. But it's going to be interesting to see how long this is going to take, or maybe how quickly they can build back up to having another manufacturer in the Cup Series, because we know it's very much missed and really needed with just the three.
Just pulled up the press release here. Were you talking about the Ramdemption?
Ramdemption.
There
That's
you go. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, and Tim Kaniskis here, the CEO of the Ram brand, to the point which you were making, the quote here is, for more than a decade, going back to 2012, I suppose, customers and our dealer network asked about getting back into NASCAR. The desire was always there, but we didn't have a plan that delivered. The last 10th and following just didn't fit our DNA. And Brenden, you're right. I remember that 2013 Gen 6 Dodge getting revealed. But the problem was Team Penske had already announced that they were moving to Ford. So the question was kind of, or they announced it shortly thereafter. Forget what exactly the timeline was, but that was really, I think, the catalyst for Dodge pulling out was, is Robbie Gordon Motorsports going to be your flagship team, or, are you even going to have anybody to field cars for? And ultimately, like we said, we had some zombie Dodges and zombie Rams, as we call them, running in Xfinity trucks and ARCA for several years. And I think it's fitting that Carl was the driver himself in his MBM car. I think Homestead 2018 was the last time we saw that. I know Parker Kligerman got that win in ARCA in New Jersey Motorsports Park, a place near and dear to my heart, in 2016. So they still had some success at that level, even after they pulled factory support in 2012. But even then, it's been 7 years, I guess, since we've seen Dodge out on the track here in NASCAR, and to see Ram come back here through a truck series, I think is only going to continue to be a great thing for that series. And then we'll see who knows what it might lead to here in the future. I imagine if this is successful, then they'll start talking to some Cup Series teams and seeing if they can make something happen there as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's just it's going to be, again, interesting to see which one of these powerhouse teams they'll be able to cling to first, which one is maybe looking to start dating somebody else. We'll have to see how quickly or how long that will take, and if there's any suitors that might be open to clinging on to. Well, we don't know for sure if it's going to be the Dodge brand. I mean, for all we know, it could be something else in the Stellantis ecosystem. I mean, who knows what we're going to see?
Yeah, and forgive me, I don't remember off the top of my head what teams were rumored here. I feel like I remember seeing somebody tweet out that there were talks that GMS might come back and be the flagship program for this launch year next year. We'll see. I don't want to get too deep into the rumor mill until things are more official or announced. I feel like maybe Nice Motorsports was on that list too, and I know Nice used to get a lot of stuff from GMS, and Ross Chastain made that very clear during his Melon Man Challenge run that they were getting a lot of stuff out of that alliance. But and if GMS comes back, then I think that only further boosts the Truck Series as well to have their name back in the series. But again, one step at a time here. We got the announcement this week, and that's just great enough news on its own that we finally have that fourth manufacturer in one of the top three series.
It's been rumored for way too long, so it is good to finally have them for real coming back. And talk about that rumor mill. I've also heard ThorSport put their name around, and that makes total sense because they've been with every manufacturer you could possibly be with. So why not?
Multiple times. I feel like they change manufacturers every 3 or 4 years. It feels like, yeah. I guess they probably haven't been with Dodge or Ram in the past, right? I'm thinking off the top of my head. I feel like Crafton's driven all three other manufacturers by, I don't know, maybe I'm missing a season of it they did with Dodge off the top of my head. I can't think of it, but that would certainly be an interesting change for sure. Maybe that would revitalize the ThorSport team a little bit too. But we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, like I said, still a lot of pieces of this puzzle to fall into place here. So we'll keep our eye on that as the news continues to come out here leading into 2026. But in the meantime, that streak that we were following, Brandon, of course, it's already come to an end about how many truck races we'd been going through without needing an overtime finish. we certainly made up for that this weekend. I believe they said also that this was the longest Truck Series race in history in terms of number of miles completed, 3 overtime attempts, and it ultimately ended up with Stewart Friesen in victory lane. But before we get to Friesen, Brenden, because obviously there's a lot to unpack there, given his recent comments about how much fun he's having in the series and wanting to continue to do this. But what was your reaction to the multiple finish attempts that we saw? And again, we know how, if you watch the show, you know how we feel about overtime here, but are you starting to think maybe when it comes down to it, these multiple attempts are just simply too much? Maybe we should cap it at one and maybe compromise there and meet in the middle.
You'll find me going back to how iRacing handles all of its competitors, at least on the top 3 series side. There's some series that play the rules of will end under yellow, but like one attempt at a green, white, checkered finish, and then after that, it's just going to end under yellow, and that's the finishing order. But I think that would sit well with me if you get one chance at it, or I mean, if you want to have 2 chances at it, but 3 and beyond, it just gets really dumb, really chaotic, and damages more equipment than we probably should be damaging. I don't want to say manipulate, but it undermines the finishing order a lot more than it probably should, and it kind of inflates, or it inflates significantly someone who probably didn't really have that finishing spot, and it inflates those who are further down and deflates those who probably had a good run going there at the end of the DQS solutions and staffing 250 miles of the race, which is what they were promised that they were going to do. But at the same time, it is in the Craftsman Truck Series rulebook that this is what we're going to do. And once you take the white flag, then the next caution will end the race, and overtimes will be there, and so on and so forth. So it's that duality. They know it's in the rule book before they get there. They know they can go over 250. That's just how the rules are now. And it does provide some entertaining restarts, especially with the Truck Series. But goodness me, coming to the line and just confetti all over the front stretch there was a little embarrassing. But yeah, they're also lucky that it was earlier in the day for the Truck Series at Michigan. I mean, they started up like 7:30, 8:30 in the morning, it seemed like, as far as getting on-track activity going. That's really, really early for a weekend. That feels more like something that would be on the American open wheel side, putting Indy Next cars out there in the wee hours of the sunrise. But yeah, I think they're fortunate that they were having events there earlier in the day, because Michigan, one of those places that's very big and does not have lights.
Yeah, it was fun. I think it was Tanner Gray. There was an image that somebody tweeted out. This was like the only lap he led all day, and he's literally going backwards because he's been spun out. But he was first to the start-finish line coming to that restart. They really pulled an imitation of the 2020 Clash, I think, which was unfortunate, tore up a lot of trucks. But hey, that happens sometimes, I guess, too. You have a stack up on a restart and you can't get going. But yeah, I mean, just again, I got to say, I saw Tommy Joe Martins tweeted this out. Obviously, the owner of Alpha Prime Racing and driver himself. He says NASCAR overtime is the most costly rule change that's ever happened. To your point, Brenden, that you were making about just the damage that we see through these multiple attempts. He says, you can talk me into overtime for the playoffs, but this is ridiculous. And then I like what Toby Christie responded with, actually. I think this might be a good compromise as well. And Toby says, I still contend that overtime in sports is to decide a finish that was otherwise in question. In most sports, it's if the score is tied at the end of regulation. In NASCAR, I think it should only happen if the lead is within 1 second before the caution comes out.
Ooh, yeah.
So again, you know where I stand. I think if it's 1 second or 1/10 of a second, or as we saw at Kansas a couple of years ago, 1,000th of a second, that was just last year, right? Times.
Right.
I can't keep
that was last year.
Time in the post-pandemic.
We had the
right?
closest finish in history at Atlanta,
year, right?
and then it was we had the closest finish in history at Atlanta. Then it was double down at Kansas.
Yeah. Closest 3-wide spread ever in Atlanta, and then the closest finish ever at Kansas just after that. Yeah.
Sorry, Echo Park Speedway.
There you go.
That was also news this week.
Yes. Yeah. Grid Tonight, I think, covered that in good enough detail for us here tonight. So you can go check out their reactions to that. But yeah, again, just going back to the stick and ball comparison, which again, I don't love making those comparisons, but you're talking about overtime here in a sport that doesn't almost ever see dead heats or ties, because we can track these finishes down to the thousandth of a second, or even I think 10,000th of a second if we had to. I still contend that I don't think it's necessary, but I will take this over the idea that, we need just unlimited attempts. It doesn't matter if the leader's got a 10-second lead and the race has already been decided. That's the rules, and we're going to restack them and restart them and just go from there. And maybe the guy that had that massive lead that should have won the race on pure speed and on pure merit ultimately gets screwed on a restart and gets sent back to, goodness knows how many cars might be on the lead lap. That could completely ruin their day, ruin their championship chances if it happens in the playoffs. I will take this compromise. If the finish is not, if the race hasn't been decided, if it's within that 1 second, like Toby's saying here, I would be okay with, again, compromising and saying, let's give the fans a finish. Let's let these drivers decide this under green flag conditions in spite of this late caution here, and let's give them that one attempt. But I still, even if we make this compromise, I'm sorry, if you can't get a clean restart off of one attempt, we let you try, but sometimes a race just ends under caution. That's just how it has to be, I think, because we cannot. And again, give full credit to the Truck Series. This has not been a weekly occurrence. In fact, it's been just the opposite. We've had many, 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 many races in a row just recently where we did not have to resort to this. But, it leaves the possibility for a repeat of what we saw this weekend, or what we saw to decide the championship at Phoenix in 2023. And I would rather not have that, but that's just me.
Good points.
Yeah. So we'll leave the overtime debate there. Let's obviously show some love to a race winner here, Stewart Friesen, the fourth victory of his career, first victory since 2022. And Brenden, I can only imagine that, given how his Truck Series experience has gone here in recent years, and particularly this year, this win has to be, we talk about confidence boosts and momentum boosts all the time on this show, but for Stewart in particular, I imagine this is a massive victory.
Yeah, especially for a driver who, what was it, 72 races?
Something like that, yeah.
It's in the low 70s there for his winless streak. And then also for the ones that were taken away from him, you'd think, I can't think back to specific events, but there was, some here in recent years that we've talked about on this show that he maybe almost had in the bag, if not for a yellow, or, these overtime finishes that we're talking about. I think he was robbed of a couple of them, or just fell out late. But he's had some nights where it was almost his, or some days and nights where it was almost his race to win or his race to lose, and he ended up not getting to victory lane. But it's been that long, and so with the Truck Series and that the limited schedule there, that makes it even more time we have to go back to find his last win. So yeah, it's good to see that Helmar Friesen 52 go back to victory lane. And for a guy like Stewart Friesen, who, he has said before that, he's not sure that he wants to keep doing this and keep trucking along, but this might give him some, a win can solve a lot of things. It can make you want to go for a little bit further, maybe if you weren't going to originally. But yeah, love for Stewart Friesen and that team, that single truck team, and the Canadian going to victory lane there at Michigan is also pretty nice too.
Yeah, I have to go back to Texas in 2022, and the one that I can't help but remember, Brenden, was Atlanta earlier this year. That was a race that Kyle Busch won in the Spire truck, and Stewart finished second there. But I remember being on this show at the end. I think that was the end of 2022, and talking about at Homestead how he just missed out on a championship 4 because he didn't have that teammate. Brenden, you were talking about being a single truck team. They have brought a second truck out occasionally in the past. That 62 truck, we've seen some familiar, popular names get behind the wheel of that. But talking about the disadvantages of only running one truck full time competitively like that. as opposed to Thorsport, who he was fighting for that spot. And he was basically said in his post-race interview, I can't compete with that because I didn't have a teammate that could lay over for me. And that brought the whole team orders discussion up. But would have been a second opportunity for him to be in the championship 4 and fight for a title. And then 12th place finishes in points each of the last 2 years, hasn't visited victory lane, hasn't been able to point his way in to even make the playoffs, but he's got that now, obviously, with this win at Michigan, and that's great to see. And I hope he sticks around. I think that, we saw a lot of this on social media this week, and you've got, Grant Empinger up there in second, Ben Rhodes up in fourth, Matt Crafton, one of his best runs of the year, up in sixth. I know, obviously, some of this order got jumbled up because of how chaotic the overtimes and the finish was, but and who knows what Corey LaJoie's future plans hold. I know we made that joke about the 12 fans or whatever that he kind of, I think, admittedly walked his own way into earlier this year, but maybe this is an opportunity for him to continue to race, and if the cup opportunities don't come his way, I think the Truck Series is healthier and better when you have lifers like this, particularly the guys that are in their late 30s, early 40s, the veterans of the sport who can be that leadership voice in the garage area, and see them running well. I think Friesen and Empinger in particular, it's great to see, and I hope that they make a championship run and maybe meet each other again in a championship 4 here, because I think that would be a great battle as well.
Yeah, it'll be like 2022 again. He's going to the playoffs, so we'll see how he does with his punch ticket. And also, yes, Corey LaJoie, that is part of his 9-race venture here with his ex-girlfriend, as he mentioned, as he put it, in the media center.
Yeah, that is kind of weird that he is doing it with Spire after everything that went down at the end of last year. But I guess that's a bridge that got burned that was still reparable, and they evidently worked it out to give him this opportunity. So we'll see if he can make the most of it.
Well, I will say this: props to him for making the situation funny, and also I think he's doing a really fine job on Prime with that trio there in pre and post race.
I agree. Yeah. The whole Prime coverage, I think, has been great. A couple things that you could maybe nitpick here and there, but on the whole, I think they've received a very positive reaction, and Corey's obviously a big part of that as well. So that's great to see. All right, comment here from Adam Lemery. Good to see Adam. Awesome to see Dodge. Well, it's Ram technically, but we know what you mean with the brand here. Back in the Truck Series next year. So many drivers won with that manufacturer, including Ted Musgrave, Robert Presley, and Bobby Hamilton. Yeah, you're going way back to the early to mid 2000s there with some of those names, but
yes,
yeah, we'll see. Maybe some new generation of drivers maybe going to help create a new legacy with that manufacturer coming back.
And I think I heard this morning the first driver to ever win in Dodge in the Truck Series was Tony Raines.
Wouldn't be surprised. I don't
believe that was
know that off the top of my head, but
inaugural victory.
Right. Yeah, and again, I'm just wouldn't bet my life on it. I feel like I was Dennis Setzer the last one, I think, to win in a Dodge. I feel like that was 2008 in trucks. Don't know off. Caution people. I'm not saying that is objective factor. I'm guessing. I feel like it was a Martinsville win back then, but like we said, they've been around. They were still around for several years after that, but their exit. I think the writing was on the wall in many ways when you think about it, because for a while there towards the end after Team Penske, they didn't have as many top teams using their equipment, and when Penske switched over to Ford, I think that was that. But like we said, it's a new era coming in here, and I think we're in for some good performances, hopefully, from that manufacturer in the future. So that'll be great to see.
I got you here. 1997, Tony Raines, first Craftsman Truck Series victory for Dodge, the Western Auto Parts America 200 at Odessa, Missouri.
Yeah, and again, that's like, I think this has been the pattern. This is like what I mentioned, what Toyota did coming into the Truck Series first. Obviously everybody remembers 2001 was the big grand return for Dodge in Cup, but there was Tony Raines taking them to victory lane when the Truck Series was just getting off the ground in the mid to late 90s there. So maybe that history will repeat itself, and maybe 28, 29, 2030, maybe even, we'll see. I hope that they don't rush it and they take their time and make sure they're prepared here. But I would venture to guess we're probably going to see a fourth manufacturer return of a Cup Series in the not too distant future as well.
I saw someone tell Brock on X that there's going to be another 500 days countdown.
There you go. Yeah,
because they're doing the same, like they're repeating history. They're doing it all over again.
That's exactly right. All right, we move on now to the ARCA Menard Series and Brenden Butterbean Queen picking up yet another win here. Want to send our best to Jake Finch, who I know was a little bit under the weather, so he pulled out of his Venturini car. Good to see him on the pit box, so it's not like he was, sitting in bed deathly ill or anything. He was at least well enough to be there listening to the radio on the pit box and be a part of a team, but not feeling well enough to drive. So it was Truck Series regular Corey Heim that strapped into his number 25 Venturini Motorsports Toyota and still only finished second to car number 28, the Pinnacle car that Queen was driving. And Gio Ruggiero ultimately faded to fourth, but there really was a period there, Brenden, during the race where it was the 28 running in first, the 18 in second, and then Corey Heim, despite everything that he's done in the Truck Series, despite us talking about how he should be racing on Sundays already and will be racing on Sundays, hopefully maybe as early as next year, he even struggled to get around those two juggernauts of the ARCA Menard Series. So the question I have for you is, if Corey Heim can strap into a Venturini car and he can't even beat Brenden Queen to get into victory lane, what does that say more about? Does that say more about Brenden Queen's talent and what his future might hold? Or does that tell you that maybe even Venturini is a step behind these two dominant teams in the ARCA Menard Series right now?
I'd venture to say it's Venturini to say that it's a little bit of both. I think Corey Heim is extremely talented. That's not saying anything new, but yeah, Brenden Queen, I think, also is bringing something very significant to the table here in 2025 with his third victory.
Yes.
Yeah, incredible. Just coming out swinging at the beginning of the year and still keeping it up here, not just a flash in the pan. And so, yeah, I think it's a little bit of both here. That Venturini, it's kind of reminded me of like Kyle Busch in the 07 Spire truck. Like, I think he's got the capability to get it done, but it might be a little mix of both, though. I don't know. Maybe getting back in the truck, it's not the same as it once was, but also Spire may not be completely up to the task, but yet they are whenever it comes to some of the other trucks in the garage. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit of both here. I don't think you can zero it in on one, but yeah, Venturini, they're supposed to be the cream of the crop. And so, that's a good, if you're running a scientific experiment to see where you stack up against the rest of the field, that's how you do it. You put the very best you can think of into your car and see how it measures up. And so Corey Heim and Venturini and still struggling, that's got to show you something.
Yeah. Well, not struggling too much. We did still place, but
that's struggling for Corey Heim and ARCA.
That is true. Sure
as soon as he was put on the entry list, it was like, well, there goes that race. But it wasn't. It was a Butterbean win.
Yeah, and we'll give Butterbean some credit here. Like we said, it's his third win, and he also retakes the points lead over LeVar Scott here, who finished still a strong fifth. So that'll be an interesting battle to follow here. Brendan's been a little bit more up and down. He's got those 3 wins in a second at Phoenix, but fell back to 25th at Talladega and then 14th at Charlotte. So been a little bit of a mixed bag here, but we know he's got the car to compete. And just looking at the rest of the standings here, Lawless Allen not too far behind LeVar Scott as well. So, a strong third place finish for him again. Of course, he got that win at Talladega. So Venturini still kind of in the championship mix right there. But yeah, I mean, I look at this and I say, kind of what you were saying, Corey, when I saw Corey Heim was going to replace Jake Finch in that car, I kind of thought to myself, well, I don't know if there's really much point in watching the race here, because based on what he's done in trucks, I imagine that even the 28 and the 18 teams are going to have a force to be reckoned with that maybe they're not up to the task of fighting. But, give Butterbean and Gio Ruggiero as well, to be fair. I know he kind of lost his momentum, got shuffled back, and couldn't quite fully recover from that. But like I said, there really was. I texted photos of a group chat I'm in, and it was the 28 running first, the 18 running second, and then Corey Heim was still the best of the rest there. So you can't make it up. It seems like no matter who gets in those two cars or drives for those two teams, they seem to be able to run at the front and make it look very easy, even though we know it's not. They still have tremendous equipment underneath them, and it seems to be a formula for success regardless of who's necessarily behind the wheel. So Again, I can only hope that, it kind of lights a fire under Venturini and that team. I know that team is going to be changing hands at the end of this season, like we talked about earlier this year on the show. There's going to be a sale go through with Nitro at the end of the year. But they still have the rest of this year, and then into the future, whatever the team looks like going forward. Hopefully they can start fighting the 28 and 18 teams or whoever is the dominant force in this series on a more regular basis going forward here. Because like you said, Brandon, when you think of success in ARCA, you think of Venturini first and foremost, I think. And that's an organization that's won 100 some races and should be continuing to fight for wins and at the very least. And, to see that even putting Corey Heim behind the wheel, it would seem to be a tall task for them is a bit surprising, but I think that just speaks to how strong Pinnacle and Gibbs are right now.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, let's not quite wrap up the show yet here. We're just crossing over the 30-minute mark. I told you right before we went on the air, if we go over an hour tonight, then we've kind of lost the plot here because we only have 2 races to recap, and ARCA, at least, of course, very straightforward as it usually is. But even with the RAM announcement here, we're still only a little beyond half an hour here. So thank you all for sticking with us. We're going to hit a few open segments here and topics that some of our grid team members suggested to us that they wanted to get our thoughts on. And if you have any questions for us in the chat, we'd love to hear it as well. I see we still got a few people watching. So ask us any questions that you might have based on the latest going on in the racing world. Brandon, this has been a hot topic, if I can speak clearly here, after the Cup race that we got this weekend. Obviously, Fontana Speedway no longer exists, Auto Club Speedway as we once knew it. There are still rumors that maybe it'll get turned into a short track, but updates on that project have been few and far between in recent days. Michigan, as a 2-mile oval, 1 or 2 dates, where do you fall on that question there? Does Michigan deserve to have 2 races on the Cup schedule, especially now that we don't have its sister track in California?
I still fall on the side of the fence that says one date is enough for Michigan. I know it's got the uniqueness of being a 2-mile and Fontana no longer with us, but I also was encouraged by the crowd there at Michigan for Sunday. I thought it looked pretty impressive for as much seating as they still have retained over the years, especially since the days of the US 500, which it used to almost go all the way around the whole place. I mean, just grandstand after grandstand after grandstand, but still a big stretch there. And I've never been there in person, but it looks massive of how much seating capacity they have. And it was pretty filled there for Sunday. And I think it's one of those places where if you add a second date, you're going to get a little mixed on whether, do you want more crowd at this one or maybe if you put it in the playoffs or something like that, because people aren't going to, I don't think the majority of your race fans much anywhere are going to be paying the prices to go to both events. They're going to go to one or the other. And so mainly for that reason, I think Michigan needs to be a one event sort of place for the year. And also I like the idea that you brought up before of a schedule, picture a schedule, if you will, where we go to somewhere different every time and no place is visited twice.
I'm still firmly in the camp that you are, Brandon. I think the only track that warrants a second date, if we're being honest, is Daytona. And that's only because I think the Firecracker 400 the summer race, I know it hasn't been called the Firecracker 400 in years with the Pepsi and Coke Zero sponsorship, but that race has enough of a tradition and identity that I would have no problem keeping that around on the schedule. But even then, if it didn't have all that tradition backing it up and you said, we got to go to Daytona twice, I'd rather you run the road course layout. Just give us something different at least, so that it's a different type of track or a different event of some sort. At least the summer race is only 400 miles, so I guess that differentiates it. And it's usually at night, assuming we don't get weather impacting that one. But for Michigan, I think after the race that we got this weekend and after the racing that we got in the final years at Fontana, that I think became a fan favorite track. I would maybe be okay with making an exception since this is the only 2-mile track on the schedule. It's not like this is a 1.5 miles where we have, almost more than you can keep track of on one set of fingers here. How many times do we go to 1.5 mile tracks? How many 1.5 mile tracks do we have on the schedule? Or maybe a couple that have fallen out of rotation that They're talking about if Chicago's street race doesn't get renewed after this original 3-year run, maybe Chicagoland could come back. I know Matthew Breaux and Tanner Smith have gone back and forth on the state of Kentucky Speedway. There's still, plenty of 1.5 miles out there, but we don't have California Fontana Auto Club anymore, and we certainly don't have Texas World. That's not an option either. So your only 2-mile D-shaped oval option is Michigan International Speedway. I would maybe be okay with making an exception to my no track should have more than one date rule, at least for the foreseeable future. Maybe somebody goes out there and buys some land and builds another 2-mile track, and then we can have that conversation when we get there. But as for right now, this might be one more exception like Daytona that I'm willing to make based on the racing that we've seen the last couple of years.
Yeah. I might also reel back and make an exception also for maybe places like Talladega that's just one that comes to mind, but like events or tracks that really benefit from having the financial backing of two events. Like if they're both like really successful, I mean, they've got to be like really, they've got to really make sense, if they can fill out Talladega, both sides. I'm not trying to take, a whole race weekend's worth of revenue away from the facility that they're used to, So if it doesn't make dollars and cents, then, those kind of places, then sure, they need to keep their 2 dates. But I'd say there's some of those places where they probably would, it probably would benefit if they were just one. And we've seen that in the past with some other places too.
Yeah, and I certainly understand, there's a business perspective to it too. You can't just snap your fingers and say every track with 2 dates is going to, have 1 day taken away here. And I think you bring up a good point about, the revenue sharing and the economy, the economic impact that having a second race might bring to a track that's maybe in a more rural area or smaller market. I'm sure that's a big time of year for many businesses in Alabama when you have over 100,000 people pack into Talladega and, what that does for the local economy there. I certainly wouldn't want to take that away. And I guess up until recently, when Atlanta became like a drafting track, a super speedway style of racetrack, that's another track type that there's only one other that exists, and that would be Daytona. And even then, Daytona is not quite as long in terms of length or in terms of width there. It's harder to run 4 wide at Daytona than it is at Talladega. So there are some differences that make that track unique as well. So maybe that would be another exception to the rule there. But generally speaking, I am still of the belief that 28 to 32 races at 28 to 32 different tracks and this is maybe a good segue. We'll get into right here with the schedule this week. I think maybe 36 is pushing what's reasonable a little bit for these hauler drivers and for these teams. I know it's been the standard ever since 2001, but to bounce off of that, God bless these hauler drivers this weekend, Brandon, because they've got to get from the very northern point of the United States here in Michigan all the way down south of the border to Mexico for this new event this weekend. And then they have to turn right around and go to Pocono the week after that. So when you look at this from a scheduling perspective, and I understand, you have to make deals in business and sometimes it can't be logistically perfect, but would it have made more sense for us to have an off week heading into this race in Mexico City, or maybe at least do this following the race at Texas or following the race at Circuit of the Americas? Maybe not that, because then you'd have back-to-back road courses, I guess. And I don't know if fans would necessarily want that, but is there anything we could do maybe going forward so that we don't find ourselves in this position where, I don't know what they would have done if it rained in Michigan yesterday, because that would have pushed them even further back.
That would have been worst case.
Would have been a logistical nightmare. Is there something we can do to maybe improve this from a scheduling perspective going forward?
Well, I would like to think when they built the schedule to be like that, I would certainly hope that they went through all the scenarios, all the logistics of, okay, what does that look like in actuality? What are these what's the drive time from here to here? And also, am I wrong in saying that there are multiple hauler teams? Like, say for Hendrick Motorsports, Team A is on from Michigan down to Mexico City, and Team B though can go straight from Charlotte to Pocono. Maybe. Is that a thing that happens?
I'm not as familiar with that part of the business side of the sport, but
I feel like I've seen that before. But I thought that was a part of it where they, of course, the driver is not. He's not Lightning McQueen. He's not in the hauler,
Yeah.
So
maybe some of the bigger teams that might have the capabilities to do that. But some of these Xfinity teams in particular, I imagine that it's going to be a tall order for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure though. So, but that's going to be something impressive to hear about those that came from Michigan to Mexico City. But I just feel like that they had thought about that. I'm probably just blissfully ignorant in that, but I would like to think that they had thought that through before they built the schedule. But yeah, underfunded teams, Mexico City to Pocono. That's just so that's a lot on the odometer.
Yeah, it certainly is, and again, I can only imagine what it would have looked like. I mean, I don't know that they would have had that option if the Cup race had gotten rained out this weekend. That pushes back because people got to go through customs and crossing the border. Like it's not like you're playing like the F1 video game and you can just go from track to track and country to country. With a loading menu. Like there's people talk all the time about that schedule and how much. People are so blessed to work in that industry. And it's like, I don't think you understand what a toll it takes on your body and the different time zones and all the travel that goes into, an F1 season. We're just getting a small taste of that here, going down south of the border here to Mexico. But I mean, I got to imagine it's going to be incredibly taxing on the hauler drivers, especially, but everybody really, to not have an off week after being in Michigan, I think is going to be a tall ask, but we'll see who's able to respond to that well. It might play a factor in who's best prepared and has the most energy ready to go to put in a good performance on track when it comes time for the Xfinity Cup race. And on that note, we did get the entry lists today, and I have to say I'm a little disappointed. I got to be honest. I think maybe it would have helped if this race weren't on the same weekend as an IndyCar race and a Formula One Grand Prix and the 24 hours of Le Mans. I mean, it kind of limits the Project 91 kind of star drivers that you could maybe put on the entry list for this weekend. But we do have one open car in the Cup race. It's Catherine Legge, and I'm very excited for her. I think this is going to be a much better representation of where she might be at in terms of what she could do in a Cup car. This is more familiar territory, I think, for her rather than just putting her out at Phoenix in a situation where I don't think she was set up for success very well. So we'll see what she can do this weekend. But on the Xfinity side, we do have a handful of ringers, including one that's still TBA. It's a 35 team and 39 entries on that entry list. They include Daniel Suarez in the number 9 for Junior Motorsports. And Andres Perez de Lara will be making his debut in the 91 car. But do the math, 39 means one team's going to go home. And I imagine that's going to be a very painful DNQ to go all the way out there to Mexico and not make the race. Unfortunately, seems like somebody's going to be faced with that here. Yeah,
that's one thing we deal with here in the Xfinity series.
Hold on, I've got to correct myself here. I think they opened. I'm seeing this is from ARCA News Central. I think they because that announcement came up too, right? They opened up some provisional spots, I think, for 39. We got to get an answer on that. I apologize, folks. I know that they there was that announcement that came out about the provisionals here, but I think ARCA News Central might be mistaken here because I see a reply that because I had forgotten about the provisional too. I think we might have all 39 making the field this weekend. So, but don't quote me on that either. I know there was it was something similar to the open exemption provisional that was announced that Elio Castroneves used at Daytona this year. So there might be a clause that would allow that. And maybe that'll be a good thing for these teams because again, can you imagine going all the way? I mean, I felt badly enough for that 35 team and Frankie Muniz going all the way out to Portland last year and having their engine go in qualifying and not making the show. I mean, that would be a very painful ride home here if we had that. Okay, here we go. This is from J-Ski. 39 drivers teams on the entry list. No drivers will go home as NASCAR is allowing up to 40 cars to start the race. So there you go. People don't have to worry about that. Which I think honestly, I think the field should still be capped at 40 cars regardless. I think that's a fine limit to be at. But there you go. We got our answer on that. 39 entries, all will make the field this weekend in Mexico City. So that's a big sigh of relief, I think, for some of these teams that might have been lower on that provisional or owners' points list there.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah, so just looking again at some of the notables here, Ty Gibbs and Christopher Bell will be in the race as well, it looks like. And actually, let me just pull up the full Xfinity list here, see what pops out to me. Brandon Jones, William Sawalich, Ty Gibbs. That's your Joe Gibbs Racing lineup there, as always. Bell is in the Sam Hunt Racing car. There you go. That's why Brandon Jones's name popped off of me first. It's 20 car, but that's, of course, a full-time entry, so everybody's used to that. Austin Green is back in the 32. That's good to see. He had a great run at Sonoma last year, so we'll see if he can kind of ride that wave of momentum that he's been on from that ARCA win at Charlotte. And got Sage Karam back for Joey Gase's team in the 53. Brad Perez will be driving that 45 car for Alpha Prime Racing. So some great names on the century list here. Again, it's not like we got a big name from the Mexico series or from an international open wheel or sports car rank here, which is unfortunate. But again, I think that's probably just down to the schedule conflicts that we have.
Tough weekend.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that's how that worked out. Do we have? No, that looks like a bot in the Twitch chat, so I'm not going to display that comment. So that's we've got that to look forward to this weekend here. Some great action in the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series at Mexico City. I'm really looking forward to this event. And again, just to clarify for everybody, 39 entries according to JSki, that provisional is in effect here. So it looks like all of them will make the race, and we'll not have to deal with a DNQ here, again, making that painful trip home early, not making the race. So that'll be good for all these Xfinity teams here, but they don't have to worry about that. All right, I have one final thing that I want to talk about here, and then we can go into the one shining moment. It's a bit of a complaint that I have because on Saturday I was out with some friends in the afternoon. I had some prior commitments, and so I couldn't watch the race live. I saw that the race was being rebroadcast on FS2, so I figured, what the heck, I'll just put the Truck Series race on. And as I turn it on, it's the red flag coverage with about, I think it was 38 laps to go. And they just continued to show the entire red flag period. I thought maybe they would skip ahead, or maybe they'd, due to time constraints, cut some of that period out so that we could see the finish of the race. But they continued showing the entire red flag, and then they showed the restart. Then they went to commercial. And then they played the bumper that says, due to time constraints, we now move ahead in our program. And they turn the race back on, and it's Stewart Friesen taking the white flag. Not the final restart, not the green flag on the final overtime restart. They skipped all the way to when he took the white flag, showed the last lap, and then immediately cut into, at the 11:30 time slot, Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour podcast. And I was so ticked off by this that I apologize to our teammates here at Grid. I had to go into the Slack chat and just vent about that, because I feel like even if you want to make the argument that it's in Kevin Harvick's contract, we contractually have to give him this number of time slots throughout the week, even though it's 11:30 on a Saturday night on FS2. I don't think it was that important, but regardless, maybe you're locked into that time slot. If you want to replay the race, at least, and clearly you're willing to edit it down because you edited out the entire final 30 laps, basically, except the white flag lap. Why could you not edit out the red flag period? Why did you have to edit out the last 30 laps and then cut straight to the white flag? From an editing perspective, is mind-boggling and makes no sense. And I think, unfortunately, gives credence to the people who complain about Fox's Truck Series coverage in particular and question whether or not the network continues to care about this sport.
That's just sloppy editing. I think those
that's what it is. Exactly.
Those condensed versions of races are done very quickly, I believe, after race completion. So to go on the next day, it really feels like, from what you're describing to me, like it looks like someone didn't even pay attention to the content of what they were editing. They were just hitting the points that they had bookmarked and just went with it, because I don't know, just going through all the red flag period, and then all of a sudden here's the white flag. And then, I mean, I understand, that we're going to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour because that's what comes up at 11:30, but it should be should be able to have an eye on what you're editing down and making sure, you're getting the actual key components of the race, extended highlights on YouTube or anything like that. It should be that same sort of standard. It just feels like someone wasn't looking.
Yeah. Well, and again, you can go catch Kevin's podcast on YouTube. It's not like that wasn't readily available too. I think it usually takes them a couple of days to unprivate the full race broadcast. NASCAR streams those privately to their channel, and then they make those public a few days after that. But I think for people that were maybe like myself, not able to catch the race live, just saw it on, wanted to flip to FS2, I imagine if that's your first time experiencing the race, and I have social media, like I knew that Friesen had won. I knew that it was chaotic. I watched the replays of those overtime restarts, but yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that, if you're a viewer that isn't locked into Twitter or locked into social media, I imagine that was not a pleasant viewing experience for you on FS2 there.
You're left clueless and confused.
Yeah, exactly right. But again, but that's nothing new from what this network's given us for the last several years, and we're just at the start of a new TV contract. So I can only hope that. And I want to be clear here. There are great people that work at Fox and people that I know, put their 100% effort into what they do. It's just sometimes some of the decisions I think higher up that reflect in the production quality of the broadcasts, leave a lot to be desired. And I think this is not perhaps not as important because it's not like this was airing the race live here and they, lost power and they went down and only came back to show us the white flag or they missed the finish of the race or whatever. At least this was in a replay. But even then, if you're going to replay the race, do it right or just don't do it at all. That's where I'm coming from there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's end the show on a better note than that here, Brenden. We have, I think, a great announcement that is maybe the front runner for a one shining moment this weekend. But what was the one thing that stood out to you for your one shining moment coming out of Michigan?
Coming out of Michigan, I guess I'm going to go with something off the track. There's this guy that's been catching my attention the last several weeks on Twitter, and it reminds me a lot of the days of Sam Bass, the painter, the artist, making all sorts of artwork for trophies for the Gibson guitar at Nashville. All sorts of NASCAR art. There's antique shops full of Sam Bass artwork, I'm sure. And, but also, probably pieces in the NASCAR Hall of Fame that have artwork from Sam Bass. Well, there's somebody on X that I'd like to shout out. It's a DR Auto Art. And he has been putting up race winning or like victory lane artwork of the Cup Series and other motorsports. And he's been doing it kind of on a consistent basis and like a really quick turnaround too. Like 9 hours ago, he had a whole portrait of Denny Hamlin in his winning car for Michigan, and in the back it's got the "I beat your favorite driver," folks, all of them. So I don't think he's actually from the United States. I think he's overseas in Europe somewhere, but he's very, very impressive, and it would be neat to see him get him or somebody like that get some sort of deal together, because I've always wished since we lost Sam Bass, I've always wished for someone to kind of fill that role of a NASCAR artist, if you will, someone that can do that sort of artwork.
Yeah, I just pulled up the account here. I feel I'm not following the account. I think I can just fix that now. I'll hit the follow button.
Yeah.
You're right. This is some great work. I feel like I've seen this before.
He's been trending. Yeah.
So that's again, you can DR Auto Art, AUTOART on X/Twitter. I think
he does Formula One as well, and other disciplines too.
All motorsports here. It looks like you got some MotoGP stuff that he put out 7 hours ago. So yeah, it was like a Sam Bass for not just NASCAR but for all of motor racing. I think that's great pick. Great to shout him out. So thank you for that, Brenden. I'm going to go back to the Truck Series here, and again, I know that it was, the results certainly got jumbled up. So maybe you could say high attrition played a role here, but 14th place. I mean, you only have to go to Frankie Muniz's socials, what he posted today. We talk about this being a weight off of Stewart Friesen's shoulders. I think this was weight off of Frankie Muniz's shoulders. He's had such bad luck this year, and he's driving for the Rion brothers, which is not necessarily a top team. They do the best they can with what they have, but like many teams do in this series. But to come away with a top 15 finish, I think, for him. Because again, you want to talk about questioning if you're meant to do this, or if this is where you're supposed to be right now. I think Frankie's done that multiple times, not just this year, but the last couple of years that he's tried to break into the stock car racing world. And a finish like this can be a rising tide that lifts that boat over there at that number 33 team. So congratulations to him. I know obviously he says he wants more, and sounds like he's committed to making this new career path for him work. This is a great step in the right direction for that, and certainly worthy of a one shining moment for Frankie Muniz. All right, that's going to be our show for this evening. So thank you everybody so much for sticking with us here. Be sure to follow it, Grid Network TV, on all social media platforms, X/Twitter, Threads, or Blue Sky, whichever microblogging platform you use these days. We are on all three of them, as well as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn. Most importantly, subscribe to us right here on the YouTube channel and visit our website at gridnetworktv.com. Now, like I mentioned at the start of the show, if you really liked what you saw this evening, you can take a few minutes to consider joining our Patreon. Join Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew in helping invest in the Grid Network and expand our coverage throughout 2025 and beyond. You can also become a member of the Grid Network YouTube channel, or if you'd rather make a one-time contribution to us instead, you can tip us through Super Chat or Super Thanks if you're watching after the fact, or you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below as well. Any amount continues to help us grow our motorsports media outlet. Now, Kobe will be back on Wednesday with Josh and Matt with Grid Tonight, so stay tuned for that. The new pre-race show format continues this weekend. Big weekend in the world of motorsports, like I mentioned, with Le Mans coming up, and NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, all happening this weekend as well. Women in Motorsports is hopefully going to be back because F1 Academy is part of the Canadian Grand Prix weekend coming up. So hopefully we'll get a show in to preview that, and then stay tuned to Grid Live all throughout this weekend as well. And then we will be back, and Encore absorbs the IndyCar Series recap since that is the Sunday night race. So we will bring you coverage of that event on this show as well. Brenden, any final thoughts before we sign off for the evening?
Viva Mexico. We're headed south of the border and cannot wait to see this debut for the Cup Series, and also the return for the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and also the NASCAR Mexico Series, all a part of this weekend. And looking forward to that, and gonna ask Dave Moody about some of these questions tomorrow. Looking forward to that as well, and hearing his take on the logistical nightmare that is going from Brooklyn, Michigan, all the way down to Mexico City.
It's hard not to feel bad for Carson Hocevar, Brenden. If you watch the Cup Series race, he had a flat tire. He was in the mix, looked like, for the win. And Denny Hamlin, apparently today, he called Carson an elite talent. Obviously, Dale Earnhardt Jr. put his name out there when asked, with the Earnhardt documentary coming out, who reminds you most of your dad. Carson's got a lot of talent. I think that much is undeniable. With him, the question has been, much like perhaps the Earnhardt comparisons are apt here, can he rein it in and not drive aggressively over his head? It's one thing to drive aggressive. It's another thing to get caught up in the controversies that he's been caught up in, certainly in his Truck Series career, and even to a certain extent now that he's gotten in Cup. He's still quite young, still in his early 20s, got plenty of time to harness that talent, but it was on full display at Michigan this weekend. And if he keeps driving like that, if Spire keeps driving like that, they'll be in victory lane soon enough. So a good run for him, and don't let the result tell the full story there. He was a driver that was in the mix to win. Who knows how it would have worked out with different strategy elements going on there. But great to see that team running well, and hopefully Carson has some more success and gets the results that are indicative of the runs that he's putting in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, it still surprises me that we still don't have a Michigan-born driver to win there yet. That blew me away.
Yeah, you would think Brad would have gotten one by now, but I think that's that in the Daytona 500. I think he's almost said he would rather win at Michigan than win the 500, or it would be as if he won the 500 to him. I know he wants that very badly. We'll see. Hopefully he's got a few more chances to do it before he hangs it up, but that would be a special win for sure. All right. For Branden Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. We'll see you on a 167-hour break here next week right here on Grid Encore. We'll see you then. Have a good one, everybody.